Scythe Tleppo, Chapter 12. We are living on the brink of the apocalypse, but the world is asleep. Joel C. Rosenberg. The bathroom. I was a virgin when I went to the ranch, like most of the kids there, regardless of what we may have claimed. But I didn't stay a virgin forever. At any given moment, it seemed no one was having sex at the ranch. But it turned out, behind the scenes, there was a lot of sex happening. That's just how the ranch was. A boring and drawn-out nightmare, yet simultaneously very eventful. There were girls who invited boys to sneak up to the upper ranch to have sex. There were staff members having S with kids on the program. Were they adults? Though it technically wasn't allowed. Some of them got married, and a few are still married now. Staff also slept with our parents sometimes. It's just sick. When they came out to work or visit, and a few of those pairs got married too. Another boy and I were experimenting in the bathroom one day when I was in kindergarten. I experimented with two-way pee kisses. This time, though, we finished the experiment. I didn't know how I felt about it, or even if I felt anything at all. The music I picked up at the Palmdale Ranch, and my natural inclination, at that time, to be a deep thinker, and more esoteric than most, kind of culminated in experimenting with homosexuality, only this time for real. About a month later, I repeated the experiment with a different kid. And that was enough for me to know for certain it wasn't for me. They were mutual exchanges that expressed a sort of closeness. In a way, I felt I had a path to being gay that I chose not to take. I wanted to be gay, but I wasn't. When the KRs came out, everyone found out what happened. Most of the kids who liked to act tough tried making fun of me, but I didn't care anymore what other kids thought. That made me a sort of untouchable, and the mockery faded fast. Maybe thought I was gay or bisexual. Maybe they thought I was an exception to the rule. I didn't ask because I never cared, and I never will. I could see other kids get upset when mocked, just like I used to. But by this time, I was completely enveloped in pain. I didn't care about almost anything anymore. I was dying inside. Scythe Tleppo. There was nothing else in the world but that ranch. And my time there was stretching into what felt like an eternity. Every morning was a lifetime. Night was an abyss of thought. The outside world was a parallel universe I could never reach. The solution, they told me, was auditing, Scientology. I was in session day after day, week after week. Constant bombardment. It's how they do it. They're harvesting everyone's thoughts. Do you guys notice this? It's black magic. I was in session day after day, week after week. Okay, I read that. The Scientology sessions were so boring and pointless to me. I attested to being a past life clear, a high level in their world. I didn't believe I was clear. I just attested to it to see what would happen, which was nothing. See how all these systems are fake? I added that. They didn't care. To them, it was just like saying I liked toast. Scientology was immutable. The program was immutable. What the hell is the point of this garbage? To remember past lives? Hell, I can do that. During another session, I recalled a past life for the auditor. Recalling past lives was easy. All I had to do was imagine what life could have been like without the current physical laws and mix in it with Scientology volumes of lore about our collective past lives. Experience it in real time. Recall it, relive it. I described a planet where armies of all red soldiers with helmets like Romans battled armies of all blue soldiers in the same attire. I walked through the experience. I spoke aloud but was living in the memory. It was war, in an epic but elastic world. I described another life in which I was a tentacled alien on a hovering mining ship who, along with my shipmate, was responsible for guarding the mining ship. I made up stories and told lies about everything I had done and everything I thought. I did anything I could to amuse myself during the endless process of them forcing me to burn my dead grandfather's money on ridiculous Scientology garbage. The sessions were made for people bright enough to understand but not being bright enough to really get it. I was in the depths of surrender, ready to pass away in the night. I was ready for death to come for me, and I found no urge to resist anything anymore. In session, they were no longer talking to me, but to Prometheus. Auditors were given direct access to the darkness inside of me. Do you guys realize how sad this is? They want past lives. I'll give them a past life. I wanted to see if their system would react to something new, something different. I wanted to see if they believed the things I was telling them. I experienced the story in real time, exactly as if I were remembering it. Voicing each idea aloud, I looked deep into myself, no holding back. I discovered and disclosed my true purpose here on Earth. Most of the people on this planet were sent here by larger civilizations, which spanned multiple star systems. They were politicians, rebels, criminals, and other undesirables. Most people, but not me. I was different. I was here on a mission. I recounted that mission for myself and the auditor, poured the experience out for my soul to the unwitting robot in front of me. I became that memory. I look around to see my reality. I am part of a major civilization, but I'm not powerful. I'm less than powerful. I'm nothing, a slave. I've done something wrong, and now I'm trapped, imprisoned. My controllers, these entities, which dominate me, have a mission for me. They hold me, the Thetan, hostage. They can control me at will. They have heard of the new movement on the Earth outpost. They know of Scientology and its progress to unravel the Thetan traps. Though there is no name for Scientology in our communications, I know nothing, for I am just a pitiful soul. We only communicate in thoughts. They make me understand they are going to send me to Earth, into a Scientologist body. There I will grow, learn, and investigate Scientology. I will observe as much as I can about its expansion. I will experience it fully and discover how long it will be until Scientology takes over the planet. When I die, I will not go to the implant stations on Mars, nor will I go back to Earth to pick up a new body. I will be beamed back to their universe. I know I will not need to tell them anything after my journey. They will read my thoughts. They will scan me and know everything I did and everything I experienced in this monkey body out here, the nothing of space, so far from them. They will assess the situation. They are in charge because they are the powerful ones. I am just their slave. My mission is my only purpose, and even that is not mine. I have no way to stop it. If they think Scientology is a threat, they will destroy all humans on Earth. They will destroy everyone and let the cycle of life on this planet start again. I am their scout. My passing ushers in an era of doom, if they choose. I am the empty eyes of death itself. I am the tool of death. This past life memory stuck with me outside of auditing. It became part of my subconscious, my personality. I conjured a name for the mission I was on, Codex, but told no one about it. I am the tool of death to all humanity, death to the world, a swift and violent death from the stars. They are the Grim Reaper, and I am their tool, their Scythe. Scythe from the stars. A faint memory brought my attention to it. Tleppo, the old neighbor's cat. Tleppo from the stars. It was perfect. My new name meant to stay private forever. Became Scythe Tleppo. Death from the stars. I started referring to myself as Scythe, which some other kids caught on to, and still call me to this day, though no one ever knew its origin. The escape. Time at the ranch moved on regardless of my integral struggles. The kids moved on, faces changed, leadership changed, most of the staff changed. Except the original Palmdale staff. They were never going anywhere. They believed in Scientology, practiced it, and preached it. And yet they amounted to nothing. When I was 16, a dorm mate approached me. He suggested we should steal a car and flee to Albuquerque. He told me he could drive. This is the chance I had been waiting for. I was all in. Everyone knew by then I was trustworthy. Other kids ratted on me, but I almost never ratted on anyone. The kid told me there was a white car in the shop that didn't have its distributor cap removed each night. He checked it himself before bedtime the night before, and knew where the keys were, too. He had been on shop duty that week. We stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. We timed the security guard coming by our windows, outside and the dorms inside. We counted seconds between each pass to figure out how long he was taking. It was supposed to be every 10 minutes. And it was. 10 minutes is forever when your adrenaline is pumping. We already knew that. We waited all night until it was just light enough to see. Security came and went. We struck out the window just as we had planned, quickly but quietly. We scampered to the white car. He threw it in neutral, and we pushed it as hard and quietly as we could. We headed straight out the front gate. We had to get it as far as possible because the engine noise would surely alert security, if they hadn't noticed us yet. We pushed it out as far as our burning lungs and pumping hearts could take. But we started to panic. He said, "That's it, let's go." We hopped in. He jammed the key in the ignition and nearly broke the key to pieces, turning it so hard. Sure enough, it fired up. It's on. We quietly drove directly towards the main road as my eyes fixated on the rearview mirror. When we got there, we turned left, the direction of Albuquerque. Soon we were on the highway. This is it. We drove and drove. Albuquerque was almost 4 hours away, but we knew they couldn't catch up to us. Even if they got in their cars immediately, they would be way behind us. We were home free. A rush of successful glee overcame us as we veered between the surreal fantasy of being free and the cold knowledge it wasn't over yet. We didn't have any plan as to what to do when we got to Albuquerque, but we weren't going to be in that cult ranch anymore, and that's all that mattered. Freedom was so close. Around 2 hours into the drive, we heard sirens. We moved over to let them pass, but they didn't want to pass. They wanted us. We knew enough to know we would be in danger trying to outrun a cop, so we pulled over. We heard yelling behind us as the siren stopped. "Driver, throw the keys from the car. You see what the police do, you guys? Think they want to help children?" In the rearview mirror, I saw a police officer standing, extremely tense. His gun was aimed right at us, and he was shaking. He was in a war zone, ready to defend himself. God only knows what they told him. Yeah, can you imagine what kind of bullshit they told him? He probably thought we were inner city gangbangers with a machine gun and drugs, out on a killing spree. They must have painted us up real nice for the police report. You Scientologists are good at that. He wasn't a city cop either. We were nowhere near any place. He was afraid for his life. Eventually, we were both out of the vehicle, on our knees next to the car, facing away from the extremely agitated officer, who had not come any closer to the vehicle. Our hands were behind our heads, and our feet crossed. My knees were in some glass, but I didn't dare budge. He slowly and carefully approached. I felt that if someone had driven by at the moment and yelled something, or if thunder crashed in the sky, he would have shot one of us right in the head, out of sheer panic. There was no point of even trying to talk him into letting us go. This is so tragic. Before we knew it, he handed us back to the ranch security guards, who were not far behind him. They said they would drop the charges if we promised to do well on the program. I suspected they would have dropped the charges anyway, to avoid a public relations mess, but we agreed nonetheless. Back to the ranch again. It's so heartbreaking. Back to camp, back to punishment. More ethics conditions. See, LAPD? Aren't you guys happy in the LAPD? The children get continuous ethics conditions. Just look it up. Doing Google searches, it's amazing what things you can learn. The staff didn't know what to do about me anymore. I wasn't going to change, but they were making good money from me. He's an easy, they're sucking all his grandpa's money. I'll bet if he didn't have money, they would have let him go. He just needs more Scientology, they must have thought. Later we learned all the cops had to do to find us was get on their citizens band radios and call out to truckers, who were more than happy to help spot us. As soon as they did, the police got the location and were on us. Well, people's opinions are changing of police right now, so. The stretch of time. In time, a few of the girls had crushes on me. Something about me probably signaled to them the deep despair in which I dwelled. Maybe it was because I had hair back then, and a total lack of urgency. I wasn't in a rush to do anything anymore. Crushes weren't very valuable to me, as I wasn't having sex yet, but I appreciated the attention. I wasn't looking for love or companionship, but I did love some people at the ranch. I also loved in the way I imagined soldiers love their platoon comrades. I will always remember these kids as they were, even the ones who have since disavowed me. Somewhere along the line at the ranch, so many of the kids were new that I wasn't in the social game anymore. I had my closest friend Johnny and a few other friends, but not much else. Johnny and I dressed in all black and tried to reflect our identities the best we could. I was able to get hand-me-downs and small bits of money to buy clothes. Those clothes couldn't be below 2.0 on the tone scale, mind you. Nothing negative. Excuse me. There weren't going to be any Marilyn Manson shirts, that was for sure. The closet I got was a copy of a Marilyn Manson shirt. Only it was Jesus Christ instead. And on the back it said something like, "I'm here to tell the truth, and the truth is I am the truth." They let me keep that one after some convincing. Johnny, who had asked me about pride in my race on my first night at the ranch, wasn't a racist. He was nothing, just like me. He eventually did leave the ranch, though. His parents had moved from Albuquerque to Washington, and he soon returned to the ranch, but to join staff. Kids often came back to work at the ranch after leaving after all. How's that for indoctrination? They knew nothing else. think Johnny didn't want to leave me at the ranch alone. He knew I had it worst of everyone, and we were very close. By the time I realized I was truly the old man of the ranch in some ways, it was already obvious to everyone else. The staff didn't bother me much anymore, and the kids all knew me, or the legend of me anyway. I was going on 3 years at the ranch with no support from my family. Great mom he has, isn't it? Christmas time came and most of the kids went home. Not me. Birthdays came and they got presents or went home. But not me. Holidays, life events, it seemed, were like some lucky kids went home for damn near anything. I hadn't spoken with my family at all. After Johnny came back, we grew even closer. We were both from another era of the ranch. We saw eye to eye on a lot, and neither of us had anything left to care about. He told me that he and a few other kids who used to go to the ranch went to meet Wally Hanks. Scientologists and ranch leadership continue to send kids to Wally. Don't you guys wonder if some of these older people that everybody's making a big deal about were some of the Wally Hanks fans? All worried about elder abuse? Leadership continued to send kids to Wally for years after he left the ranch. Wally took the kids out sailing and bonded with them. That's love bombing. Johnny didn't realize it was the same. Wally from Palmdale, he said. All I knew was that it was sick. Wally was an abuser in Scientology and the Mace Kingsley Company. Mace Kingsley Company were knowingly feeding children to him, probably advertising a Theta boat excursion for kids. Tried not to think about things that depressed me, though, so I carried on. The ranch taught only the state minimum for conventional subjects at best. The rest of the course time was spent on Scientology studies. And because it wasn't an accredited school, of course it wasn't accredited school. Oftentimes kids went home to find they had to repeat grades. I had been helping in the course room, trying to teach the kids math for a little while, as I've already done all the courses several times and was bored to tears. I picked up some math back when I went to private school. None of the other kids knew it very well, and the staff didn't either. Most of their education was from Scientology schools or the ranch. I gained a little bit of trust from the staff, and because I wasn't stealing cars and lighting forest fires anymore, after a while that trust grew. See, these are the kids, they just give up. Johnny moved to the secluded large barn at the upper ranch. He was a trusted staff member, and I had gained a little bit of trust myself, so we were able to convince the real staff to let me bunk with him. The barn was a very large building, technically at the upper ranch, the girls' area. About a 2-minute walk away, there was always a night watch up there, just as there was at the lower ranch, and initially, since I was still on the program, the night watch came by to check on me frequently. After a few incident-free weeks, that slowed and then stopped altogether. The window. Johnny could go on Albuquerque runs with the kids to supervise them. He was actually from Albuquerque, and that's where all his friends were. They were punk rockers and other rebellious types, into drugs and partying before Johnny came to the ranch, and by this time, were much deeper into that life. The temptation for us was just too much to resist. I started going on Albuquerque runs with him when I could come up with an excuse and get permission. At first, I snuck off alone while he watched the kids in the ranch's apartment that they rented for the occasional overnight trips. The first time we did this, Johnny prearranged for me to meet up with one of his friends, who gave me a joint and told me to use it when I felt it was safe. I walked back to the apartment building because the search was certain to happen back at the ranch. Decided to smoke it immediately. I didn't really know how much to smoke, so I smoked the entire joint by myself in one sitting, in the parking lot. I puffed like a maniac while I wandered around the apartment complex. which had morphed into a labyrinth of identical buildings. My senses heightened, slight paranoia set in. There isn't much to this drug compared to gas huffing. I don't even feel. Where the hell am I? Which one of these buildings is the right one? Johnny began bringing whatever he could get back to the ranch. The first time he brought back a bottle of rum and some weed. We timed our consumption of them to make them last until his next run. It's our escape. Once we had tested the model and found it workable, importing began and we focused on going to Albuquerque as often as possible. Johnny took me to meet more of his friends in Albuquerque. Carl Reed was one of the first we met. He was already smoking a bowl of weed when we showed up. "Here, take a big rip," was the first thing he said to me. I immediately complied. We all drank so much hard alcohol and smoked so much weed. I was barely able to walk. They really wanted to show us a good time while we were in the cult jail. They weren't about to take in an underage stranger, but they were more than willing to party with me. Before long, it became a regular routine. Johnny and I later got a full night with the boys. We had planned it out. Johnny's phone calls weren't monitored at the ranch, so it was as easy as a call from him and some good timing. He was going to pick up a new kid who wouldn't be there until the next afternoon, so we had the whole night. His friends brought something new because they knew we had the time: LSD. We got to drinking booze, about 7 of us just hanging out in the ranch's apartment in Albuquerque. One of the guys tried to get me to take 3 tabs of the acid. Johnny insisted I start with just one. It was gel tab acid, blood red. It looked so interesting, like a video game drug. Dropped it on my tongue while everyone else dropped theirs. We continued drinking our alcohol. I got somewhat drunk but felt nothing from the acid, so I assumed it was just a weak drug, like weed was. Everyone chatted, and I struggled to keep up with their conversation. It was hard being that drunk, but in a good way. Everything about my life washed away with alcohol, though I knew it would come back in the morning. I walked into an empty bedroom on the way to the bathroom and looked closely at the window. I got too close to the window and fell through the glass. I came crashing down onto the pavement 2 stories below. I didn't feel the impact of the ground, but I could feel shards of glass sticking through my chest and stomach. Oh my God. The pain was intense, but more than I felt. I felt a strong mental reaction. I really screwed up now. I lay there looking down at my chest and stomach, which had blue glowing shards of glass piercing through. I didn't know if I was going to die or how long it would take to know if I was going to die. The flashing blue and red shards of glass told me all I needed to know. The police were there too. Yeah, you would think the police would wake up, right? I don't know, maybe they just can't get them out. I felt an immense sense of shame and embarrassment. I let them down. Oh, God. They took a risk with me, and I let them down so quickly. I wasn't as cool as them. I was a loser. I got everyone caught. The police were going to catch them all. I saw the squad car, but couldn't make out the faces of any officers through the blinding flashing lights. They approached me as I lay dying in a pool of blood, glass, and regret. That was my life, and this is how it ends. The pain from my stomach rippled through my body in waves. My vision faded into darkness, as my mind did into oblivion.